purpose is to create a relationship. If you want a long-term relationship, should you not tell your spouse everything honestly before you get married? The same thing is true for when you interact with a client. Say is as is. So if you're basing it on honesty, the rest follows, na? The objective is, can you convince him to be at 14 so that his family and he can benefit for the rest of his life? So what's the brand promise is 15% return. So I think data back basically says that instead of flying kites, can I look at data and reach conclusions? I need to be data back. I think objective first, then strategy is the right approach. If 14% is the objective, then the pathway cannot be different. If a relationship manager is not available at times which are adverse, then what is the purpose of that relationship manager? Don't avoid difficult meetings. Don't avoid difficult circumstances. Face them head on. That's what is being in a relationship.
Every organization is shaped by the quality of its decisions. So I'm Aarti Desikan, and I'm honored to be speaking with you today for our series of Rakesh Rawal Uncomplicated. Under your leadership, I think Anand Rathi has seen its wealth values for its clients grow to assets now managed of close to 92,000 crores. And this is really proof that good leadership, fearless leadership, built with a lot of conviction, humility, hard work, can really create a lot of positivity, not just for the markets, but for its people. So thank you for joining us on this series, which is called Vision, Values, and Decision-Making and Strategy.
Thank you, Aarti.
Thank you, sir. I think as the first part of what the series is about the vision. You took over as the CEO of Anand Rathi Wealth back in 2008. Did you have a very clear vision of where you saw this company growing to, or what was your vision?
So, no, the only thing that I believed in was that there is a more logical way of doing wealth management than the way that was being practiced in the industry. Broadly, the practice in the industry was to sell various financial products. But it was not adding up in my mind that all this for what purpose, right? And therefore, I said, hey, can I create wealth management where there's a purpose and then the actions follow after that? So define the purpose and then have the actions which we need to take to achieve that purpose. And that my belief was that if we put the horse before the cart, maybe it'll be more efficiently run. So the vision was, can I do that and then see as to how it runs? If you say, did I know where will it run to? No, I didn't.
Right.
So whether it'll run to 90,000 crores or 10,000 crores, I had no idea. And that's how we started. Over a period of time, once you've got a handle on various variables. Yeah. Today, I believe that this, horse-led cart can grow at 20-25% for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
No, but it's great to have a good vision, but you were probably a relatively lesser heard voice at that point of time, because most of us came from institutions where selling products, how much we did in a particular month, and sales was everything that people were speaking. Like you said, it was a product-led approach. To have the conviction to stand behind what was required at that point of time could not have been easy.
See, point is that if you do something that you believe in, it's not difficult. But yes, you have to change, you have to build that conviction in people because they came from a different background.
Right.
And therefore, that took time. Yeah. But for me, it was never difficult. like you joined us, 2, 3 years after we started. So, you came from a certain background, but then we work with each other, we do joint calls, we, meet clients, we spend time, and then slowly, the belief rubs on each other. Yeah. So maybe to some extent it had already rubbed on Divya, then it had rubbed on Firdaus, and so on and so forth. So you sort of, the belief sort of percolates slowly the entire organization. And then then the other person is teaching somebody else, and so on and so forth. So it starts in a certain manner, and then it sort of keeps mushrooming.
No, absolutely. In fact, that was something that I was going to ask you because a lot of CEOs or leaders have great values and great visions, but it requires an entire organization to really believe in the same value for it to really reach the kind of levels of success that it has to.
See, as an individual RM, I can handle 50 clients. Yeah. So if there's a vision to handle 12,000 clients, 24,000 clients, can I do it on my own? I can't. Right? So I need people to share that vision, and that's how it will keep growing. So if I retain it with myself, I can do good for 50 people. But if I want more and more people to benefit from this way of managing money, then I need to have this percolate to different people.
Correct.
And today, I don't have to do it. You are doing it to your teams. You are yourself training youngsters in that vision, in that thought process. Tomorrow, the youngster of today will become an adult. He will train others. And that's how it'll just keep spreading.
True. Now, I think it was very, very interesting for many of us who joined Anand Rathi at that point of time because many of us had come from MNC banks. And to go to clients and say that we were from Anand Rathi, it was not a very well heard name. It was purely these values and what we were bringing to the table that actually got people to listen to us.
No, I agree with you, but I think that, we can't take away from the natural prowess of the people to build relationships. You came from another bank, but you always had a good mind and a good heart. Yeah? That's required to create a relationship, right? And so did the other colleagues, and therefore anybody will see through and say, hey, an individual here is also somebody that is respect worthy.
Right.
The brand may not have had as much, it may not be as popular, but the person that you interact with also has an influence on you. So it was more led by people at that point in time. Today it is more led by the brand itself. Yeah? Because what is a brand? There is a certain expectation of behavior when you hear that brand. There's a certain expectation of value that you will create when you hear that brand. It was not, this value is, of course, improved, but a sense of value coming from the individual was much more than the brand at that time. Now it is both together, so to say.
You speak a lot about values and the culture of Anand Rathi, and I think a lot of our clients and our employees speak about that. Where did some of these principles emanate from?
See, the starting point is that I'm a relationship manager. So what is the purpose of being a relationship manager? The purpose is to create a relationship. Now, do you want a short-term relationship or a long-term relationship?
Long-term relationship.
If you want a long-term relationship, should you not tell your spouse to be everything honestly before you get married? If you keep something behind, then you are creating a risk in your long-term relationship.
Right.
Yeah. The same thing is true for when you interact with a client. Say is as is. If he finds you interesting, he'll say yes to you and you'll have a long-term relationship. And if he says, hey, this doesn't gel with me, then that was destined to break in any case.
Right.
Right? So let it not start. Right? So if you're basing it on honesty, the rest follows, na?
That's true. But it's still very difficult sometimes to be fearless, especially when there are short-term pressures. There are situations where the client is coming with their opinions. To stand your ground and be fearless
No,
is
see, it's like this, that fear, if you're doing something for the good of the client, yeah, now it's about what kind of communication you create. Yeah, fearless is that you need to make that communication to the client as to what is right and what is wrong.
right.
So if his portfolio is earning him 8%, then that's a fact. It can earn him 14, 15% is a fact. So you can say the same thing and say, hey, you know what? You've done a great job of managing your money at 8%. Yeah, a whole lot of people have their money in deposits getting only 6. But can we do it 14? Do you have the opportunity to do it at 14 at this risk? Yeah. So you're not making him feel bad about the fact that he's done 8. Yeah. But you are making your point that he should be at 14. That's the opportunity that this country gives us.
Right.
But, so communication without offending. Your objective is not to offend. Objective is not to get into an ego battle.
Right.
Objective is not to say, hey, I'm the winner. The objective is, can you convince him to be at 14 so that his family and he can benefit for the rest of his life? Yeah. Now, if I'm scared that he'll get offended, then there will be no improvement. So somebody has to overcome fear for change to happen.
Right.
Yeah. So let's be the first person to overcome it. Then we'll have capability of making him.
I think the difference is you have enabled your teams and your RMs to be fearless, because one of the key principles that you'll follow is not just communication but data, and it's much easier to be data backed and take that to the table and convince clients rather than just speaking English. So was the thought process of being data backed in everything that you took to the table something that happened organically, or what was the thought process behind that?
See, it's like this, that I am asked by the client that, hey, so what's the brand promise is 14, 15% return. So does it come out of thin air? Or is there some logic built in making that brand promise?
Always a logic.
So logic has to be built on data, na? Can I see the future? That's not available to me. I can only see the past, right? And build the logic and the mathematics to see, hey, what is the probability that this 14, 15% will get delivered? Yeah.
Right.
So I think data back basically says that instead of flying kites, yeah, can I look at data and reach conclusions? That's data backed, because I'm trying to reach conclusions for what is likely to happen 3, 5, 10 years from now. So either I should have that Divya Shakti or Divya Drishti, that I can see it and I say it. Since I don't have it, maybe some people do, they don't need to be data backed. I need to be data backed.
Right. No, and I
That's
think
my infirmity.
absolutely. No, and I think talking numbers sometimes makes a lot more sense, because like we tell clients when we talk about risk, we don't say high, low, medium risk, because what is low to me may be high to somebody else. But we actually measure it in numbers. And that brings a lot more clarity to the table when you're having these conversations.
Right. So if I have to convince a person into action, yeah, he will say, hey, Aarti, you're such a brilliant wealth manager. You spent, 15, 16, 18 years in the industry. You've created so much of value for others. So let me do it, because you've created value, you'll create value for me. Option 1. Option 2 is you show him the data and say, hey, this is my reason, logic, math, that it should do well for you. Yeah? Which will sell more?
The latter.
So it's simple. Again, it's not him versus me. It is not a person giving an opinion who may have a pedigree far greater than mine, right? So the question is, then you get into A versus B versus C. So therefore, then advisory is equal to find out the quote of the most famous guy and make that your own and give advisory. If it's opinion led. Yeah. Then wealth management made even more simpler.
Right.
Or say, hey, this is the math and the logic which says that the probability of this happening is X, Y, Z, and therefore, are you comfortable in doing it? Then please go ahead. If not, your call.
True. And I think people have bought into that philosophy, and that's seen in the strategy that we have had at Anand Rathi over the years. In fact, I think it's been over maybe 10, 12 years. The strategy has not changed. And everybody at the firm knows that we do just two products. They know what the asset allocation is, and I will allow you to tell us what that asset allocation is. But dealing with just two products, is it as simple as to do just that? Or is it difficult to be able to reach one's objective with just two products in the strategy?
So, if, for example, I start my business from the point of view that, hey, please just do this product and this product, then the question will be, why not this product? So then I'll introduce a third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth. Yeah, because every product will have something to offer. However, that means basically I'm getting into strategy without clearly defining the objective.
Right.
But if I go one step back and say, what is it that you want to achieve? Are you happy in achieving 14, 15% return? First, answer that question. And if the client says, hey, I'll be thrilled with 14, 15, because 14% compounded is huge value creation over a period of time. In any case, my balance sheet today is creating only 8%. So why am I scoffing on 14 or 15? Right? Then I ask myself that what is the simplest way to get 14, 15 at the least risk that I can work on.
Right.
Yeah. When I do the math, I find that, hey, if I do a combination of mutual funds and structures, then it can lead me to that objective being met at 0.6, 0.65 beta, which is 30-35% lower risk than Nifty.
Right.
Right? Now, a simple pathway is making me achieve my objective. Why do I choose complicated?
Because it sounds fancy.
No, so I'm saying you want to add another product for what purpose? So I ask somebody, he says, oh yeah, I want to do something. I said, what is the purpose of it? I want to experiment. I said, please go ahead and do your experiment. That's nothing to do with me. You defined a purpose with me of 14, 15, which I'm achieving with a simple manner. Yeah, I add some complication which is not adding value to it. In fact, most of the times it is reducing value, and the various audits we have done shows that. Yeah. So all of us, when we are walking in a pathway, there are circumstances which digress us. Even the plane that takes off from Bangalore, because of wind conditions and so on and so forth, moves its direction. Yeah. So what does the pilot do? It brings it back because it's clear that from Bangalore it has to land in Delhi. Yeah. If it allows it to go veer off, then he may land up in Mumbai instead of Delhi. Is that what you want? That you started with the direction of strategy and landed somewhere else? Maybe it is better. Who knows? Yeah. So I think objective first, then strategy is the right approach. And we'll all be tempted to do A, B, C, D. The idea at that point in time is to not say, hey, why are you tempted? Human nature.
Right.
But manage that temptation and bring it back, bring him back to the pathway is our role.
And we've seen you speaking the same language with every client who comes in, whether it's a client with 2 crores of a balance sheet or 100 crores of a balance sheet, where I remember you telling a client that if you are happy with 14%, I'm your person. If you want 18%, I'm not your person. And you're comfortable with not getting the next client in unless he believes in this thought process.
Yeah, see, it's like this. Like we've always said that we've created a brand. Brand represents something. Lux represents something. The lux used by me and used by you is not different. No? It's giving the same value to you and to me. Right? So if my brand's promise is being used by a 5 crore guy, he's getting the same 14% return.
Right.
Same brand is being used by 200 crores, is also getting the same 14% return. So if 14% is the objective, then the pathway cannot be different. 14% on 2,000 crores, the pathway will not be different. So I have a family which requires 5 luxes, and he is a family who requires 1. I'm not going to send him different lux soaps because he's buying 5. It'll be the same lux, the same brand, standing for the same thing.
Right.
Right? So why should it be different?
True. And I think this strategy of 65-35 on one's own principle, has remained in good, bad, and really challenging times. Was it easy to stand your ground in times like a COVID, for example, where one doesn't know what's happening? Markets are falling, people's monies have fallen by 30-40%, and yet the strategy remains 65-35.
See, the fact is that because we had that 35, the portfolios were down 12, 13%, 14% in the financial year where the markets were down 26%. And therefore, the structured product part of our portfolio uplifted the spirits of the people. Now, when you're tackling a COVID, then you're also using other data of what kind of crisis had happened in the past, right? How much time did the markets take to revert back to the original levels from where they started? Yeah, we went through that exercise.
Yep.
So a combination of experiencing in the portfolio something which is far better than what otherwise could have happened, added to that a whole lot of data which says, hey, this is not going to last forever.
Right.
The average time that crises have lasted, I think, is a year or something of that kind. So this is the worst case scenario if you go by the average. Yeah. So life doesn't come to an end.
Right.
If you're going to get the same value back in a year or year and a half, why would you want to tinker around with it?
Right.
So just be patient.
No. And I think you gave us a lot of courage and made sure that we met every client at that point of time. It wasn't the decision of, let's just all move back till things settle down. If anything, you ensured that every client was met, spoken to, their concerns were allayed, because that was equally important at that point of time.
So ask yourself a simple question. You're a relationship manager, okay? So you have a very strong relationship with your family.
Right.
Your parents are having a good time. So you meet them when you feel like. Your parents are going through some health crisis. Should you meet them at that point in time or say, "Theek hai, let them manage and I will come and meet them once it is over"?
Not at all.
What will you do?
Definitely
Go
be with them.
immediately,
Yeah.
be with them. So when there is a financial crisis or any kind of crisis, you're seeing portfolios down, the client is in pain, what should you do?
Be by their side.
That's because you're a relationship manager. If a relationship manager is not available at times which are adverse, then what is the purpose of that relationship manager?
Right.
Yeah. Now, you may not meet him, or somebody may not meet him because, hey, you know what? There'll be a lot of, blame, negativity, etc., etc. And you want to avoid that. तो हिंदी में कहते हैं कि बिल्ली के वो क्या बोलते हैं आई थिंक if I close my eyes, the cat won't go away.
Right.
Yeah. So you're only making it worse
Yeah.
by not meeting that person. Right? Go face up to him. If there is negativity, if he's going to blame you for the strategy, be with him or her.
Right.
And slowly, slowly allay his fears and bring him back. Right? That's a difficult meeting. Don't avoid difficult meetings. Don't avoid difficult circumstances. Face them head on. And that's what is being in a relationship.
No, and I think you put a lot of meaning to the relationship in a relationship manager. There's a reason why it's called a relationship manager.
Yeah, because the second part, manager, is common for even my purchase manager. So how is a purchase manager different from a relationship manager? They're doing two different jobs. Manager is, yes, you're managing something. But what are you managing is defined by the first word.
Yeah.
And that is why you have to be clear in your mind, what does it stand for? Like we also say wealth management. Yeah, we are saying wealth management and selling products.
Absolutely.
No idea of the balance sheet of the client. No idea of what are the steps of management. But we say wealth management business. And what are we doing? We are selling financial products. So, like in our case, we defined wealth, we defined
Right.
management. So, if we are using language, what does it stand for? We have to have clarity. So that the other person is also receiving the same meaning as what we intend to convey.
Right.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're starting off without defining the basics. And if you start a relationship without defining the basics, where is it going to end? And our objective is long-term relationship. Kaise hoga?
Yeah. But from a time where maybe Anand Rathi was managing, 100 clients, 150 clients, and there were maybe 20 relationship managers. Today, there are close to 400 relationship managers and almost 11,000, 12,000 families. To have this consistent message taken to every client and for every relationship manager not to fall into that need to get back to sales. How difficult is it as a leader to bring that about?
See, every leader has sub-leaders. I have to convince Feroz. Feroz has to convince people like you. And those people like you have to convince people down the line. Right? So my job is very simple. I just have to convince Feroz. And then he has to do the rest. So I think that's why you have layers in an organization wherein everybody has to do his part of their duty for the end result to be aligned.
Right.
Yeah. So as long as a team, that's why we have to work as a team, which means that the bowler has to bowl, the batsman has to bat, and then only we'll sort of win the match.
Right.